If you've ever interacted with a baby, you know that they are very noisy creatures that are easily distracted by all kinds of other things in the environment. Babies are just doing their thing, and that kind of makes them fascinating research subjects.
Infants can't tell you what they're thinking. They can't press a button to choose one thing versus the other. What ManyBabies 5 is based off of, this idea that their gaze or where they're looking can give you information about what they're attending to, what they might prefer to look at. It's a large-scale global investigation of the different factors that drive infants' curiosity and their exploration of their visual environment.
How complex is that visual thing that I'm staring at as a baby? How many different pieces does it have, for example?
How does the amount of familiarization or the amount of experience with an object influence infants' attention to that object? How does infants' age influence how long they'll look at a familiar object versus something novel? And then we connect with researchers around the globe, and we all, run the same study, test the question in the same way, and then we kind of examine stability and differences across labs around the world.
Do they also apply to infants growing up in Europe, in Africa, in Australia? That's sort of the idea.
So I'd say what has motivated me to look at the reliability of research is that I started graduate school in 2011, so about the time that there was a lot of attention on what was called the reproducibility crisis, this idea that there are psychological research findings that maybe aren't replicable.
We want to trust that when we get a certain result from an experiment, that's a result that is repeatable, that describes a true thing that's happening. How do you go from this little blob, to making all these complex decisions, reasoning processes? There's a fascination just in the puzzle.
When I first started ManyBabies, I was very nervous about getting involved. On a whim, I answered an email and said, yes, sure, I'd like to be part of ManyBabies, and started working with the consortium. So the advice I would give to early career researchers is don't be afraid to jump in and try something new. The best decisions I made in graduate school was sending that one email.
The award allowed us to think big, try to reach out more broadly beyond the existing researcher network.
I think it's important to have awards like the Einstein Foundation's awards because it really conveys to the field how important and valued this kind of work is. It allowed us to do things like to create the stimuli for the project, which are not only going to be useful for this particular project, but will also be shared and will be a resource for the field of psychology more broadly.
I think it also makes the work better to be able to share our ideas, think together about and build a consensus around the best ways to answer the questions we all care about.